Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. Yeah. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzo show. Yeah. Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. Yeah. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzo show. Yeah. Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. Yeah. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzo show. Yeah. Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzo show. Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the intro. First of all, let's imagine Robot Lady in our head.
Imagine me. Are you serious? Am I a joke to you?
Telling us that recording started.
A recording started.
Thank you, Robot Lady. Yep, there we go. Dude, welcome back. Matthew and Rizzo show here with my dude Rizzo, as we are every week, hanging out right now in the Token Smart Discord on the stage, recording real time. We have a small little crew listening to us, which is always very cool. Another weekend passed and like another decade happened. we had so much shit happen in the last week. Everyone, of course, is still talking about the trickle of bank runs and FDIC takeovers and shit like that. Smarter people than us can fill that gap and continue talking about that shit. We're probably more salient for us and our listeners is the news that popped up yesterday about Meta's Insta NFT exit, i.e. like Instagram sunsetting their NFT project that was around for checks notes like 6 months or so.
Did it start? I'm not an Instagram user. Did it ever like really get rolled out?
Yeah, I think they had like one drop featuring a group of artists that had participated, and that was pretty much it. I just saw a tweet this morning from iArt Sometimes, aka Sean Williams, awesome artist. But last year around May, he had this tweet, super savage, looking back at it. And he was calling out Instagram, who had been reaching out to some artists that have been active in the crypto art space, asking if they want to come to like a pizza and pop party to talk. Which in reality, they were really just trying to get some high level, basically free consultation from these artists to help set up their NFT platform. Apparently, they didn't even listen to whatever any of the artists that ended up showing up shared. Because they did that one job or whatever, like I was saying, playing loose and quick with the facts before announcing yesterday that they're folding everything, which, I mean, to Instagram's credit, is sort of like par for the course. It's sort of like they just figured out that it's still more profitable and easy to continue exploiting artists for eyeballs to sell to advertisers instead of actually helping artists make money on their platform. So
yeah. So like, what's the take on that, man? Because I feel like, in a lot of ways, NFTs are such low-hanging fruit for platforms like that and are really not a huge cost burden or like huge lift in theory, or maybe I'm just too deep in it to think it's not a huge lift. And so I almost like don't even see the point of them not dabbling in it unless they have something like you're saying, like some sort of predatory angle on like artists and creators that was like starting to derail. But it almost seems like it would just either complement or be in tandem with what's already going on over at Instagram and not really detract from anything. Or maybe, I don't know, what's your philosophy here?
Well, I think you have to zoom out a little bit and look at what Meta's doing overall. I think they literally just announced another wave of layoffs. Like 10,000 or so folks are going to be leaving like the Meta family. I'm pretty sure that also may include folks from Instagram just because they're under that same Meta umbrella. So it seems like they're hyper-focused on efficiencies. And while it seems like pretty straightforward to like set up a marketplace and let it go from there, I think their approach working and featuring artists, like building out that team, if they needed to form a whole like layer within their dev stack to support the NFT marketplace, like those are a non-trivial number of bodies that they're paying to do something that like I would never even think to buy an NFT on Instagram. You know what I mean? It's the classic sort of app to kill time, not spend money or collect like invaluable cultural artifacts from the crypto movement. Just not that association that goes there. So from an ROI perspective, I think they're probably not doing anything, and they realize that, hey, if they actually really did want to make money, they would have to put considerably more resources and time into everything. And like I was saying, it's so much easier just to riff off of the artists and exploit their work for eyeballs. So I feel like they just pulled the plug there, but I doubt it's the last. We'll see like Instagram and like we can probably extrapolate, say Instagram is a bellwether for the rest of the old Web2 cohort of apps out there. They're probably going to come back, and like Super Rare Zach was saying below a tweet I had yesterday, they're probably going to come back and just like acquire their way into the space versus trying to organically build something out. Although I still think there's probably going to be issues there, just because, like, I mean, even looking at Instagram, which was an acquisition, like the original founders left because of cultural disagreements. Like the project totally changed from what they had set out to create, right? And you can just imagine like the difference in the gap between even like managers or senior level managers, not like executives at Instagram and Web2 projects today. Like if their company were to acquire a Web3 startup, like the cultures couldn't be any more different. There'd be a huge gap between people that would ostensibly be coming in and helping to shepherd the new acquiring entity into the mother entity, right? So there's like, that's not exactly as easy done as it is said in that instance. But what was really interesting for me personally is the fact that Instagram probably realized how hard it is to make money these days in the marketplace space for NFTs. And you can probably like, I mean, I'm sure you're like, you see it too. Like everything is obviously dramatically down from where it was in the bull, right? You look at anything in terms of like the like PFP space, gaming side of things, metaverse side of things, everything's down. Yeah, there's bright spots, but there's nothing really that jumps out from a headline perspective in terms of people not in the space looking at what we're doing and being like, holy fuck, we need to make the biggest headline for this in a positive way. There's, of course, like negative shit that people keep throwing at us and labeling us with, but with the exception of art, man, like there's not a lot of.
It always comes back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I feel like we also keep coming back to this like recurring theme lately where like I feel like there was this misnomer or this like anticipation or something during the bull run where like a lot of people thought that if they hit the market correctly or if they delivered like, you know, a certain product or acquired the right like project or whatever, that there would be like an influx of normies that would see what's going on, and that would sort of like open the floodgates to you know, the whole space really going mainstream in like a tech sort of way rather than just like a day trading, like, you know, people trying to flip stuff type of way. And now I think, you know, we're seeing a lot of them doing exactly what you're saying. They've been in it this long and they're like, shit, this is not something that's easy to turn a profit on, and it's not something that's easy to put out there like on a Super Bowl ad or something and get like quality people engaged in the product and the community who are going to stick around beyond like day trading and stuff. And so I feel like what we really have at this point in the ecosystem is just the slow, like organic growth of the like original community that is sort of like, you know, really like organically branched out and spread over time and like, you know, brought in people who do care about the tech and who are interested in building long term, but that's like sort of functions in a different sphere, I think, and is not easy to tap into from like a marketing perspective. And also like the tech and the space in general, I think is, at least at this point, has almost like proven what we said a long time ago before the bull run, in that like everything's just too janky and fucking weird and like not normal enough for people to seamlessly come in and not notice that and just be part of whatever is going on here, unless they're willing to like educate themselves and do some onboarding and be careful about scams. It's like we always thought that we would have never gotten to the point we were at in that last bull run because the tech is so janky. And now I think we're sort of feeling the after effects of like the mainstream people who came in realizing the exact same thing. It's like this shit is like too janky to like really onboard people in mass. And so I feel like, for now, the best play has been what it always has been. If you're like, in here building for the long run, and that's either to like, sort of get your hands dirty and get involved in what's actually going on around here. Otherwise, you sort of function in that other sphere of like investors and speculators and people looking to acquire or looking to dump like profitable projects and stuff. And I don't know, man, it's interesting times.
Yeah And especially for the crypto incumbents. It's kind of funny to use the word incumbent here, but like the marketplaces that had already been here like pre-bull, it's still getting tough for all those folks too that sort of had been building in the right direction, had been courting the right folks. Like the situation like as it is today, we have like two whale marketplaces effectively. And like to pull on a Korean idiom, like when whales fight, the shrimp get crushed. And with Blur and OpenSea like going like strike for strike and like making shitty decision after like shitty decision without thinking really about long-term impacts on artists and creators and like who is helping grow the ecosystem. It's like all the other marketplaces are in a tough place because all the liquidity is going to a couple places. People are like worried about purchasing in this sort of atmosphere. Either they're worried about purchasing something for an inflated price that is just inflated because of like Blur token farming or something like that, or just they're worried about this sort of behavior devolving into something much worse. And also just the pool of artists is limited that a lot of people continue to buy, right? So marketplaces, especially the art focused ones, are trying to figure out and come up with ways to make sure that they keep bringing on like up and coming artists, which is a super hard curatorial task, and making sure that those folks that they do bring up like maintain some sort of loyalty to come back to their platform so that they can help make some like future returns there. But I mean, this whole space is effectively a tool chest for all these artists, and the artists themselves that really do make it end up becoming their own marketplaces and effectively become like agnostic to where they release, right? So it's fighting over scraps there. Plus you add to the fact that there's so many more marketplaces about to come to market. Like looking at the job postings, it's kind of funny, but yeah, the emoji domain crypto project, whatever, like they're coming up with a marketplace that's launching soon. Gary V's like funding a few other like pre-launch NFT marketplaces. And there's many more in the works too. So fighting over scraps is sort of tough for a lot of existing marketplaces at this time. But it is interesting to at the same time look at what's starting to, or what is gaining traction, or what is kind of gaining more mind share or more attention. And I hate to say it, but also don't hate to say it, but Starbucks coming into this space is they're continuing to do something interesting on the, like, the white label marketplace side of things. Last week on Thursday, they had a siren Starbucks drop, like 2,000 editions, priced at like $100 a pop. So sold out within 18 minutes. So quick 200K sale there. Surprising. I was personally surprised. I was not expecting even half of those editions to sell out over the weekend, and demand was like right there, which is kind of wild to see. And you better believe like other Web2 projects are like, what the fuck did Starbucks just do? And then also like outside of like the corporate play, there's this growing emergence of like small scale, like more or less decentralized curators. Like Super Rare Spaces started it. Nifty Gateway, the publisher platform with folks like 33, Fake Whale, King of Midtown, RX2, Super Chief, Mocha, the folks like Dave Good and Satsman Soon from Future Art, Crypto Cubes, Maro Collective, doing big things, having like big six-figure curated drops that they're bringing on using these tools that these bigger platforms have provided them, are showing some sort of like interesting bright spot. Plus other like artist value add services like Atom or Vertical Crypto Art, right? Like those are sort of interesting bright spots in this whole kind of like downturn.
Yeah, I feel like this bull run is really sort of separating a lot of people who thought they were going to make it, who might not be able to, based on what happened before. But I feel like it does always come back to the art, man. And going back to what you were saying earlier, you know, I feel like starting up a new marketplace or entering this marketplace like battle royale and fighting for scraps is such like a normie like Web2 move, right? I almost feel like, you know, we're witnessing the demise and like really like discussed with a lot of the people who have been in the space a long time for these marketplaces. And I feel like the space is already moving in this direction, man. I would really love to see like the future quote unquote marketplaces essentially be like a search engine for micro marketplaces that are out there and like able to be vetted by smart contracts for like, you know, non-rugginess or whatever, instead of like having to, you know, go through these, you know, giant, you know, corporations or whatever you want to call them. Just, you know, getting back to sort of like the direct to consumer type of roots. And I think there's a way to like get back to that in like a decentralized way that you can still sort of like see everything in different places that's in your wallet. But if you want to find something, like even the existing marketplaces, like the search tools are awful. Like if you want to like look for anything really. And so, you know, I almost feel like, you know, the progression of the space just, and, you know, we've also got this situation where like people from certain countries are banned from certain marketplaces, and you know there's, you know, projects being censored and like all this shit, and so I feel like all that lends itself getting towards like a direct to consumer type of thing, because you know, every time they ban a country, every time they ban a project or whatever, you know, you got to think, you know, that's another like chunk of the ecosystem or a chunk of the stuff that's out there that's potentially cool or potentially like talented individuals that are, you know, sort of getting written out of the equation. And I don't think the space wants that. I think we're sort of being like, we're sort of having that rammed down our throats. But there are, you know, getting back to the space essentially being like an entire toolkit. There are workarounds for that, and I think there are like desirable workarounds for that as well. So I would love to get away from what the marketplace battles has become like altogether, because I don't think it's the path forward, and it seems silly to just like spin up more marketplaces again, fighting for like, you know, transaction scraps and trying to, you know, basically aggregate like all these things in like a cohesive way. It's a huge undertaking to get it done right, and nobody even is really doing it right. So I'm sort of hoping that this like forces the space's hand in general at examining other alternatives, because I just don't see the sustainable path forward for this. It's undesirable for most people, and there are better ways around it.
Yeah. I have a feeling like a really small team is just going to do something out of left field.
Yeah.
That's going to end up becoming like a solution to a lot of these problems, or at least like the help trigger like a next wave that's a little bit more sustainable than what we have currently. It is sort of like a pipe dream, nothing really concrete to kind of point to outside of like the examples I mentioned above. Like there's some amazingly like lean, but like on it teams that are using some of these tools now. And it's just like, we're a couple tools away, we're a couple refinements away from making and like reducing a lot of the friction you're talking about. Like there's so much jank that's still left. There's so much jank that has been smoothed over and obviated over the past like 3-4 years. Like I'm sure you can see it too, how fucking terrible everything was back in the day, how terribly slow it was, like The scaling issues had yet to be hit. Like before that, it was a shit show. It was really bad, except for a brief point in time before folks came in, before like big 2018 bull, when everything was like super, super cheap and no one really knew what was going on over here and everything was wicked cheap. With that exception, everything became really unusable for a long time. Still a lot to overcome, but optimistic, man, on that sort of thing. And that's sort of like always the rub. There's that ebb and flow. We have these periods of big booms and then like big busts. And in between, people keep building and refining. We get something incrementally better until we have something that's like just a huge, huge improvement. So basically waiting on that. But hopefully in the meantime, there's not too much bloodletting. And hopefully some of these marketplaces are able to keep the lights on, because you'd hate to see a marketplace like wind things down, especially in a marketplace that has like any sort of brand value in the NFT space. That would be a huge, huge hit to the space. Yeah.
Your Starbucks point earlier is interesting too, man. I actually had a great conversation with an Uber driver at East Denver who was like, knew I was going to the conference and held some various currencies that I didn't get into with him, but was just like curious about like general takes on the market and everything. And I was like telling him about Starbucks and got into an interesting conversation with him about that and how weird it is and ironic it is for us to sort of have Starbucks on our side in a strange way, because I'm certainly not a fan of like the big corporate takeover, but we've all talked a lot of times on how like one thing our space like significantly lacks is like people involved in the government and the lobbying and that side of things. And so for a corporation like Starbucks to take the plunge and lean into it and stick with it and do well, to sort of eventually have them defending crypto, defending NFTs to the normie culture and to potentially like regulators and everything like that is actually like not necessarily the worst thing for us. And I'm guilty, especially early on, of being like extremely resistant to some of these, big players trying to come in and take, from the ecosystem. But at this point, I feel like everybody has, and it also hasn't worked out that well for everybody. I remember, Dragonate's in the audience here. We did the thing with WWF, World Wildlife Federation, and put a lot of time and energy into it, and they just got blasted publicly to the extent that their drop didn't even go live and never ended up happening. And that was not really too long ago. It was about a year ago. Before any big organization was really confident enough to stick their neck out and dig their heels in here. And I'm like, who would have thought, man? Like after all this, Starbucks might actually be out there swinging the bat for some of the stuff that we've been working towards in the grand scheme of things. So I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Life's weird in Web3.
Dude, your point about the lack of representation from our space and like the quote unquote like normie world, like that soft power, something it's been conspicuously lacking in our space. Yeah. And yeah, we have like the old guard that has formed like policy advocacy groups championing us in Washington and whatever. Like they're not moving any boats in any like significant direction, right? They're a bunch of like former lawyers, ex-finance folks. Like, to be straight up, they're not crypto native, right? Because just because they collected a coin that like appreciated in value early, that doesn't make culture, right? When arguably Rare Pepes and everything that came after that, when folks were using crypto to buy art, right? To buy culture, to create and incentivize the creation of more culture that's native to crypto, that's the real crypto native shit. And those are the folks that are able to then spread that culture further and wider. It's kind of ironic that Starbucks coming in at this point, at least, when the dust is settled for a lot of the crypto native boom that happened over a year ago, to come in. And as of last week, I think they had around like 25,000 folks that they onboarded. They're doing a slow rollout to their reward members. I think the next wave is going to go up to 250,000 in short order, introducing NFTs to their reward participants. But that's bringing regular people in that may have not even thought or considered or had any intention to get into crypto or NFTs. It's introducing them to NFTs that in turn are appreciating based off of them buying more coffees, right? Buy more coffees, get more reward NFTs, you stack them, you can get rewards, or you can sell them on the market and make a profit. And we all know from back in the day, that simple instance of, getting something for free or like super cheap, that was really easy and not time consuming to acquire, that then you're able to resell for real money. Like that is such a fucking game changer and so fundamentally different than anything that's existed in these sorts of reward programs to date, that when those light bulbs go off for those folks, that's a chain reaction, because they're immediately telling their friends and their friends and their friends to check this thing out. And it's also like the NFTs. Remember those things? Like it's real. It works. You know what I mean? So it's going to be very interesting, and it's pretty cool to have at least one like normie Web2 company doing it pretty well at this point, in a way that allows them to run more experiments and onboard more folks to the space.
Yeah, dude. Again, who would have thought I'd be here like sort of praising Starbucks? But to be fair, I like their coffee. But this is not a Starbucks shill. I do appreciate their approach in the sense that it like works with they're not trying to do something outside of their wheelhouse. They're not trying to introduce NFTs in like a really like fucking stupid way that's just like an obvious like money grab, even though I'm sure they're like trying to profit off of it. But they are actually, at least if I'm understanding it correctly, like actually integrating NFTs into their product and ecosystem in a way that actually like makes sense and is like a decent use case for NFTs. And it's like, it seems so simple and so straightforward to those of us who have been here for such a long time. Like what they're doing is one of like the most easiest, straightforward use cases for NFTs that we've all been saying, like, how are more people not doing this? And a lot of us have been doing stuff like that on like a very individual grassroots, project-based level. And so, and again, I'm not like, I don't have any Starbucks NFTs and I'm not like super caught up with the inner workings of it. But from my take on it or outside take on it, it seems like they actually put some thought into it and are like using them, which is cool to see because just the drops without use cases. I feel like everyone thought for a while there, as long as they just kept cranking these things out, people would keep buying them, even if there was nothing down the line for them. And that worked for a little while. But I don't know. Here you have Starbucks with like not a bad entry in terms of like, using the tech.
Yep. And even like the stamps that you earn from like buying coffee, that's one vehicle that they have to tokenize like existing reward points. What they did last week on Thursday with their Siren release, these were unrelated to like, and not tied specifically to buying coffee, but acquiring one of those editions gave you like 10,000 extra like Starbucks points that could then be used within their reward program, right? It's like, oh shit, like there's so much upside there. And for folks, and for Starbucks that has arguably one of the most rabid fan bases of their reward program. Like when I was in Korea, I've never seen anything like it. My mates already had like the Starbucks app on their phone like years and years ago. And they were just obsessed with collecting stamps. They would take like the crew, like, yeah, let's go on another coffee break. Like I'm 3 stamps away from completing this round. And I'm like, what the F are you talking about? But like adding in that ability to then own those rewards, it's like, yeah, it's perfect. It's natural. You have this entrenched, established base of rabid users. Let's give them shit that they already like and make it even better. I think Reddit is probably like another project that has been doing something similar, right? Like they had their Reddit PFP drop. I think they've had a couple, and I think they have something in the cooking up on the stove for something even bigger, full bodied, probably more along the lines of like a Starbucks release, which is really interesting to see. So you're seeing some bright lights on pulling on the things that have worked in this space just on like a crazy scale.
This is how like desperate I've become, man. Just to, like, in this space in general. At first, I was like, "Fuck all these people, get them out of here. They're just trying to extract value from our ecosystem." And now I'm like, "Well, at least Starbucks is using the tech in a decent way." It's like,
well, you can't be a maxi about it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
No, I agree.
Like, no Web2 projects in crypto forever. Like, that's such an untenable position, especially if people actually come in and do something that's like not 100% wrong. Like, I feel like that's, if we've learned anything in the space, having at least a little bit of an open mind is the way. So keeping eyes open for whoever doing the right thing is definitely the play.
No, and it's cool, like you were saying, to see their sort of entrance at this point in the market, because I feel like the reason I was so adversarial, or I can't see the word, you know what I mean? Or maybe that was the right word. Objective in the beginning, or opposed to all these Web2 companies coming in, is because it seemed like such an opportunistic thing for all of them during like the bull market, like just cash grab after cash grab after cash grab, and no one really putting any thought into like, integrating it into their company or whatever. And so again, man, like, them making an entrance in the bear market, using the tech thoughtfully. I'm like, this is cool, man. And like a different angle than most of the ones that I've seen, at least up until this point. And yeah, man, as the space continues, I've always thought it's like the inevitable course of events. But now I see them more like in an adjacent role of people who are using the tech in interesting ways and at a scale that like a lot of people aren't able to experiment with. And now there's something like actually sort of interesting going on over there, and I dig that, man. And I hope you see more of that, because there's a lot of these big companies who have the power to leverage this tech and do really cool stuff with it. But I think up until this point, it's been like a consumer education problem where they see this stuff from the outside. It's really janky on the inside, but the cash grabs look easy. And so everyone wants to get in on the hype train. And now, sort of seeing who's taken a, larger magnifying glass to it. But if we're rooting for Starbucks and this works, man, I feel like we see a lot more of this. And then maybe that's when, like, we start getting some big dogs in our corner in terms of like, backing up the space for like legislators and like lawmakers, and getting like effective policies like in place or not in place. But it's tough when, it's a small gang of super fans functioning the best they can, rather than when someone with some firepower comes in, even if they are like also sort of evil and corrupt. But they can be our evil and corrupt friends for us for a little while, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, the more we just need more regular people to have exposure to this and realize that it's not bad, right? Or at least it's not 100% bad. Like, there's nothing ever that's 100% good, nothing ever 100% bad, but majority good. And folks that come in, they're like, I have my reward, NFTs and shit like that. Like, if they see on the news then that like Elizabeth Warren is coming for your crypto, and like including NFTs, people are gonna be like, fuck you. Like, get away, get out of my house. Like, how dare you try to take my Starbucks NFT rewards away from me? Like, I earned these. Like, who are you to say anything about this? That's sort of that tipping point. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of
she starts messing with like the Starbucks mafia and their like reward coffee. It's over.
But seriously though, like,
no, I know.
It's sort of like, I don't want to. It's definitely not the same thing, but in a similar way that back in the day, like crypto faucets were sort of an easier way for folks to get Bitcoin and early crypto, right?
Yeah.
There needs to be a similar faucet for normies to have more exposure now, like on a larger scale. NFTs are definitely one type of faucet, and we're seeing it with like these big plays from Starbucks and Reddit that they can onboard a lot of new people in a short time. And that infusion of new blood is both great economically for everyone that's active in this space, and then we're just talking about in terms of soft power, vis-a-vis like antagonistic fucking governments, like the U.S. is appearing to be more and more with every passing day. It's good to kind of counteract that side of things too. So we're sort of talking about the same thing over and over, but
No, it's cool, man. I feel like we successfully sort of Trojan horsed ourselves with NFTs into the mainstream conversation, and now that the cat is out of the bag, Starbucks is sort of stuck defending us, and it's good. I think this was we sort of needed a catalyst like this that was going to use the tech in an interesting way and be able to articulate why it's interesting, and a good use case on like a larger scale. So I don't know, man. I would love to see other big players come in a thoughtful way in the bear market here.
yeah.
But while everyone else seems to be like packing up and everyone else is packing up and leaving, and we end up with like Starbucks and McDonald's.
Fuck. Y'all looked at the wrong time. You thought it was all gonna be Taco Bell from here on out. Wrong.
Gronk. Yeah, man. So what else, dude? I think we're taking a break from the whip this week, I believe, which is fine. We've got like a bunch of firepower coming up on the upcoming whips, including State of the Metaverse open panel or open address on the 14th of April. We got like Metageist coming up. Wizard X, Fabiano, and Patrizia are preparing a spot for one of these weeks. A lot of stuff. It should be dope.
Async art coming back.
Async art, yes, dude. We're gonna do an async art whip. They're gonna talk about the Last Supper coming up and everything, which is gonna be a giant collaboration. It should be great.
Yeah, man. Really excited for that. Excited for the break too. I know everyone's been like on the conference circuit for a minute. Paradox inspired me last week. He was just like, "Yo, I'm taking a break next week," and I'm like, maybe we should all take a break. We've all been traveling.
Yeah. Everyone is either traveling or been traveling and away and everything. So it seems like a timely time to take a break, especially when we got like a whole bunch of banger whips coming up. So
yeah,
perfect.
Cool. And I think Dragonate said he had a question that had popped up. Dragonate, what's your question, dude? Do you think there's a world in which companies that provide something valuable currently get into NFTs, do well with sales and royalties, then decide that NFTs are more profitable and forego their current business?
Interesting.
I mean, honestly, I just think Starbucks is that example right now. I don't like. Are they going to give up coffee and just do NFTs full time? That doesn't make sense. I think the best model is when companies realize it's not an either or, it's something that's complementary. It's something like NFTs or something that could enhance what they're currently doing and make the experience for customers and for their community better. That's my personal opinion. It would be wild.
Dude, I can see
McDonald's just like stop making Big Macs and be like, yo, get this digital Big Mac. It's less harmful to your health overall.
I could see something like Groupon or like StubHub getting like totally disrupted by NFTs, where like they just decide that's a better vehicle for them to deliver what they're already delivering. You know, some of these like coupon sites and like reward aggregator sites or whatever, sort of pulling on like the Starbucks, are using it here. I bet some of those businesses focused on like delivering that kind of thing specifically could just completely switch to NFTs at some point.
Yeah,
that's my take.
I think that's a fair point. Cool.
Questions from the audience.
Shout out Chad Nate. What was this last thing he said? Just I missed it. The coupons can basically replace. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're not going to have like an airline come in and like tokenize their frequent flyer miles and just like sunset the planes. It makes no sense. Boom. There we go. Thanks for the question. Shout out Tristan Dragonite for sticking with us, listening to us, and Jose Cabrera hopping in. Shout out to you, man. I haven't seen you for a while. Missed your sonic sounds. Hope to have you back at the whip in a minute. But dude, Rizzo, anything else before we wrap up and close things out for this episode?
No, I think we're good, man. It's fun to like sort of zoom out and take a look at the larger landscape and what's going on here, especially when it's sometimes it feels like not a lot is going on, but there is, man. Never dull.
Never dull. Awesome, dude. We'll catch you on the flip next week. Take it easy
Sounds
until
good.
then. Later, y'all.
Later, man.